Okay, so I showed you this code for this catfish, which is a sticky footer. Okay, I showed you this, but let me just show you. Now, as you're looking at this, you can go, okay, I've got this markup. Well, where does that show up at? Okay, let's come over here to my blog. And here it is right here. I'm going to click on this and go to inspect. Do this with me. And as we open this up, what do you see? Div, ID, catfish, class, catfish. Let's go back. Div, ID, catfish, class, catfish. Now you'll notice this one says is visible. Well, this is visible is something that's being added in by the JavaScript. And it's based upon when you scroll. Okay, well, watch this. I'm just going to close that down. So if I go and I refresh this, notice it's not there right now. And then as I start to scroll, whoop, there it is right there. Okay, so I'm going to open it back up again. So JavaScript is doing that. It's putting this class in, and then you can see the CSS over here and what the CSS is doing. Okay, so that CSS, as soon as you put that class in, it says, hey, I'm going to make you visible now. And then we get that little bit of animation that happens. All right. We can see then that we have a wrap and then we have catfish content. Well, let's go back and we're going to take a look. Wrap, catfish content. See it right there? And I'm going to open that up. And now I have some more divs in here. 1, 2, 3. I have a share container. I have comments and I have the scroll to top. Well, you can see that. Watch right here what's happening as I go over that. Okay, that's all the content. That's the share, right? That's the comments, and that's the scroll to top. Well, let's go see what we have here in the code. Include share.php, include comments.php, include scroll to top.php. So what am I doing right here? This is your first coding lesson. What am I doing? If you're still not understanding include essentially says, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to look for this file that you're telling me, and that needs to be its path where it's located at. And I'm going to first say, does that file exist? So we'll just put exists. If yes, then I'm going to load it into memory. Okay. And when we load it into memory, what happens? Well, it's going to run. PHP will run it, which means we are going to execute it. That's what we call is executing the code. If I could spell. Okay, so it's a PHP extension. PHP, as soon as it loads, I'm going to run it. Okay, so I run this one, then I load, and I go back through and I say, does it exist? Yes, let's load it into memory, and then I run that one. Next one, doing the same thing. What happens if it doesn't exist? Well, then you're going to get, because this is an include, you're going to get a warning. And on the WordPress websites, warnings are suppressed. Okay. We actually will load them in, if you have it set up this way, into an error log file so we can do something with it. Now, if this were a require, excuse me while I scribble, if I wrote that as a require and that did not exist, you're going to see some really ugly box that pops up here that says fatal error because it's required and it couldn't load it. Okay, so from this, you can see this is HTML here. This part right here is PHP. And how do I know the difference? Well, when I teach you HTML, you'll be able to see that, oh, okay, that's HTML. And then right there, it says, that's the opening of PHP, and that's the closing of it. So everything in between here, hello, Mr. PHP interpreter, would you please run this as PHP? Everything outside of it, it's going to look at if it's a script being JavaScript or jQuery or React or Angular or Backbone, whatever, all JavaScript files and frameworks, okay, it will run it as such. All right, so in this case, this is HTML, then it switches and runs PHP, then it does HTML again. And you can see that, can't you? So if I come over here, right here, we can see everything. Okay, so there's the share panel. And if I were to go into that HTML, so I would say, okay, share. Let's go and open that up. Come down here and I'll go share. So I've got share, catfish panel. There's the header. Then I include 2 more files. Okay, so if I go and I open up, here's Facebook. There's that. If I open this up and I go Twitter, here's that. Okay, well, let's look at that. There's Facebook. Okay, and you can see it's highlighting it up there. Watch this. Great. Here's that one. And that one's Twitter. And I'm using font icon. That's what I'm using there. Okay, so when you see these little emblems here, these little symbols, those are actually font icons. And you can use a symbol if you want. An image, a different font icon, whatever you would want to do. These are from Font Awesome, by the way. Okay, so here I've shown you some actual code and related it to you to a site. Now, here's how I did that again, in case you were confused. Okay, I'm going to get out of this. And what we're going to do is come down here to the component that you want to see and then right click. And then open up Inspect. This is in Chrome. If you're in Firefox, it's the same thing. Come down and click on Inspect and look at the panel. What do you get? Well, this side right here, because I'm in the Elements panel, this is HTML. Over here, I've got my CSS styles. So I can actually read the actual CSS each time I click on an area. Now, this is what I'm going to invite you to do now, is I want you to look at this website, and you can also look at this one, and go through and inspect. Just start taking a look, open things up, and you can see the HTML markup, and then you can look at the styles over here too, just to kind of get your arms wrapped around the front end of a website. Okay? Now, as we talk about this, notice that this catfish is putting out HTML. It's not in the theme. No, this catfish is a feature. We're adding in a new feature. So the HTML is coming out of the plugin itself. This is a WordPress plugin. If I come back to the beginning and I scroll down, it says this is a plugin. Okay. These styles, however, so if we come in here, you can see here are all the styles. These are SAS files. However, they do not get loaded from the plugin. Why? Well, let's talk about that in the next video. I'm going to talk about the separation between a plugin and a theme so you can understand the difference of what goes where.